Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of his ship. The UES Titan was the biggest rescue ship that humans had ever built. Its metal walls were thick and strong. The engines could push through almost anything in space. Jake had been the captain for 5 years now. He knew his ship could handle trouble that would break other vessels. The bridge was quiet that morning. Most of the crew was eating breakfast or checking their equipment. Jake liked these peaceful moments. They never lasted long when you worked search and rescue in deep space. Lisa Chen sat at her communication station. She was the best at understanding alien languages that Jake had ever met. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she listened to signals from across the galaxy. Most of it was normal traffic. Trade ships talking to ports, military patrols checking in with their bases. Nothing interesting. Then the alarm started screaming. Lisa jumped in her chair, her screen filled with red warning lights. "Captain, I'm getting an emergency signal. It's not human." Jake moved quickly to her station. "Where is it coming from?" Lisa's hands flew over her controls. Numbers and star maps appeared on her screen. "The Veil Nebula, sir." Deep inside the dangerous zone, Jake felt his stomach drop. The Veil Nebula was bad news. It had a dying star at its center. The star was throwing out deadly radiation and pulling everything around it with crazy gravity. Most ships stayed far away from that area. "What kind of signal is it?" Jake asked. Lisa worked to decode the message. The alien language was different from anything humans normally heard, but emergency codes were the same everywhere in the galaxy. Fear and desperation sounded the same in any language. "It's a distress call, Captain, a big one. They're saying they have 3,000 people on board. Their engines are broken. They can't move." Jake called for his senior crew to come to the bridge right away. Within minutes, Commander Ryan Bell arrived. He was Jake's second in command and knew more about dangerous space than anyone. Dr. Amanda Foster came next. She was their expert on alien life forms. She could tell you everything about how different species lived and what they needed to survive. "Show me the location," Ryan said as he looked at the star map. Lisa put the coordinates on the main screen. Everyone could see the problem right away. The distress signal was coming from deep inside the nebula. Radiation clouds showed up as angry red swirls. Gravity fields twisted in impossible patterns. Broken pieces of rock and metal flew everywhere. "That's suicide," Ryan said quietly. "No ship can fly in there." Dr. Foster was reading information about the aliens who had sent the signal. "They're called the Zalari. They come from a peaceful planet with low gravity and gentle weather. Their bodies can't handle much stress." She pulled up pictures of the Zalari on her tablet. They looked like tall, thin people with pale blue skin. Their arms and legs were long and graceful. Their eyes were large and kind. They looked nothing like the tough, strong humans who lived on Earth. "Their planet is dying," Dr. Foster continued. "The star near their home is expanding. It's burning up everything around it. These people are refugees trying to escape." Jake studied the information. The Zalari ships were beautiful but weak. They were grown instead of built, like living plants in space. They worked fine in peaceful areas, but they would break apart in the harsh conditions of the nebula. "How long do they have?" Jake asked. Lisa was still listening to their signals. "They're saying 6 hours, maybe less. Their life support is failing. The radiation is making them sick." Jake walked to the big window at the front of the bridge. Outside, the stars looked calm and peaceful, but he knew that somewhere out there, 3,000 innocent people were dying slowly in the dark. Ryan came up beside him. "Jake, I know what you're thinking, but we can't help them. The Galactic Rescue Consortium already said it's impossible. They won't send ships into that death trap." "The consortium doesn't know what we can do," Jake said. Dr. Foster joined them at the window. "The Zalari are herbivores. They eat plants and have never fought a war. They don't understand violence or danger like we do. They're probably terrified. Right now." Jake thought about Earth. His home planet was a dangerous place. Storms that could level cities. Earthquakes that could swallow buildings. Volcanoes that could bury entire countries. Humans had learned to survive by being tough and smart. They could fix things quickly and work in places that would kill other species. The Galactic Rescue Consortium was run by aliens from safe, peaceful worlds. When they saw a problem too dangerous to handle, they gave up. But humans came from a world that tried to kill them every day. Danger was just another thing to overcome. "Captain," Lisa said from her station, "I'm getting more signals. Other alien rescue ships are turning back. They all say it's too dangerous." Jake made his decision. He turned to face his crew. "All hands to emergency stations. Set course for the Veil Nebula. Maximum speed." Ryan stared at him. "Jake, that's certain death. Our ship is tough, but not that tough." "Maybe," Jake said. "But we're going to try anyway. Send a message to the Zalari. Tell them the humans are coming." Dr. Foster smiled. "They'll think we're crazy." "Good," Jake said. "Let them underestimate us. It's worked before." The Titan's engines roared to life. The big ship turned toward the Veil Nebula and began to accelerate. Behind them, other rescue ships continued to fly away from the danger zone. They had decided that some people couldn't be saved, but humans had never been very good at accepting the impossible. They were about to show the galaxy what Deathworlders could do when innocent lives were at stake. The rescue mission that everyone said couldn't be done was about to begin. The rescue operation began with something that made the Zalari think humans were either very brave or very stupid. Pete Johnson, the ship's cutting specialist, deployed the Titan's mining beams. These were tools designed to slice through solid rock on asteroids. Now Pete was using them to clear a path through the debris field. The beams cut through metal and stone like a hot knife through butter. Chunks of debris that had threatened to crush the delicate Zalari ships simply vanished in bright flashes of light. The Zalari escort pilots watched in amazement as a clear corridor opened up in front of them. "How is this possible?" asked the Zalari captain. "Your weapons are so powerful." "They're not weapons," Jake explained over the radio. "They're mining tools. We use them to cut up asteroids for metal." The concept was foreign to the Zalari. Their people had never needed to mine dangerous asteroids or work in hostile environments. They grew what they needed or traded peacefully with other species. The idea of flying into an asteroid field and cutting it apart for resources seemed insane, but for humans it was just another day at work. Dr. Foster was dealing with a more complex problem. The Zalari were dying from radiation poisoning and their bodies couldn't process the medical treatments that worked on humans. She had been working for 2 hours straight, trying to modify human medical nanites to work with alien biology. "The nanites are too aggressive," she muttered as she studied her computer screen. "They're trying to repair damage that doesn't exist in Zalari cells." Ben Carter looked over her shoulder. "What if we program them to be more selective? Tell them to only fix radiation damage and ignore everything else." "That might work," Amanda said. She began typing new code into the nanite programming system. It was dangerous work. If she made a mistake, the nanites could kill the patients they were trying to save. The real crisis came when the Zalari transport's bio-hull began to die faster. The organic ship was literally a living creature, and the radiation was killing it like a poison. Cracks spread across its surface. Sections of the hull turned black and fell away. Chris Lee, the structural engineer, studied the damage reports. "Captain, their ship isn't just breaking down. It's dying. We need to do something now or they'll all be exposed to vacuum." Jake looked at the readings. 3,000 Zalari were inside that dying ship. If the hull failed completely, they would all die in seconds. No rescue operation could save that many people that quickly. "What do you recommend?" Jake asked. Chris had been thinking about this problem for the last hour. His solution was typical of human engineering: creative, crazy, and just dangerous enough to work. "We perform surgery on their ship," Chris said, "while we're flying through this nightmare." Everyone on the bridge stared at him. Even by human standards, that sounded impossible. "Explain," Jake ordered. Chris pulled up a diagram of the Zalari ship. "Their biohull is dying in patches, but we can replace the dead sections with human materials. Polymer plates, metal braces, anything that can hold pressure." Alex Turner, their best pilot, studied the plan. "That would require precision flying like nothing I've ever attempted. We'd have to match their movements exactly while work crews operated on their hull. Can you do it? Jake asked. Alex looked at the swirling chaos outside. Energy storms raged. Around them, gravity fields shifted every few seconds. Debris continued to rain down from all directions. Flying formation with another ship in these conditions should have been impossible. I can try, Alex said simply. That was enough for Jake. Humans had built their reputation on trying impossible things and somehow making them work. Jenny Brooks, the communications specialist, coordinated between both ships. She had to maintain perfect contact between the human work crews and the Zalari engineers. Every few seconds, solar flares would disrupt normal communications. But Jenny found ways around the interference. Zalari engineering team, this is Titan Control, Jenny said, into her microphone. We're going to attach polymer patches to your hull sections 7 through 12. You need to shut down life support in those areas for approximately 20 minutes. The Zalari engineer sounded terrified. 20 minutes without life support? Many of our people are already weak from radiation exposure. We'll work as fast as possible, Jenny promised. But this is the only way to save your ship. Maria Santos led the engineering team that would actually perform the surgery. Her people suited up in heavy work gear designed for the most dangerous jobs in space. They were used to working on the outside of ships while flying through asteroid fields or radiation storms. Remember, Maria told her team over the radio, we're working on a living ship. Be gentle with the biocomponents. Don't cut anything unless I tell you to. The operation began with Alex bringing the Titan into impossibly close formation with the Zalari transport. The two ships flew side by side, only a few meters apart. Any mistake in piloting would send them crashing into each other. Maria's team crossed over to the alien ship using magnetic lines. They worked like medical surgeons, cutting away dead biohull and replacing it with human materials. The polymer patches weren't pretty, but they would hold pressure and protect the people inside. The most dangerous moment came when a massive gravity wave hit both ships. The Zalari transport was thrown off course, its dying biosystems unable to compensate. For a terrifying moment, it looked like the ships would collide, but Alex Turner was ready. He fired the Titan's maneuvering thrusters at exactly the right moment, keeping both ships in formation. His flying was so precise that Maria's team barely felt the disturbance. Nice flying, Alex, Maria said as she continued welding a polymer patch into place. The breakthrough came when Chief Santos realized they could create a hybrid hull system. By combining human polymer technology with living Zalari biomaterials, they could make something stronger than either system alone. It's like giving the ship a cast for a broken bone, Maria explained to the Zalari engineers. The human materials provide strength while the biosystems heal. Dr. Foster finally succeeded in programming the medical nanites. The tiny robots now understood Zalari biology well enough to help without causing harm. She began transmitting the nanite programming to the alien medical teams. Your people should start feeling better in about an hour, Amanda told the Zalari doctor. The nanites will repair the radiation damage and boost their immune systems. The Zalari doctor couldn't believe what he was hearing. You have created medicine for our species in a few hours? This should take years of research. Emergency medicine is different, Ben Carter explained. Sometimes you don't have time for proper research. You have to improvise and hope it works. As the hybrid hull repairs continued, the Zalari began to understand something important about human engineering. These people didn't just build things to work in perfect conditions. They built things that could be fixed, modified, and improved. Even in the middle of a crisis, the Zalari transport was no longer dying. The combination of human polymers and alien biomaterials was actually stronger than the original hull. The ship could now survive in conditions that would have destroyed it before, but their problems were far from over. The dying star at the center of the nebula was becoming more unstable. Energy readings showed it was approaching final collapse. When that happened, the explosion would destroy everything for light years in every direction. How long do we have? Jake asked Danny at the navigation station. Danny's face was grim as he studied the stellar readings. Maybe 40 minutes before the star goes supernova. After that, nothing in this nebula will survive. Jake looked at the Zalari transport. Even with the hull repairs, it was still too damaged to fly fast enough to escape. Its bioengines were failing and its navigation systems were barely working. That's when Commander Bell made a suggestion that proved humans really were crazy enough to attempt anything. "What if we tow them out?" Ryan asked. The idea was so insane that even the experienced rescue crew stared at him in shock. Towing a ship the size of a city through a collapsing star system had never been attempted by anyone. But humans had never been very good at accepting limitations. They were about to try something that would make them legends throughout the galaxy. The UES Titan dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Veil Nebula. Jake Morrison had seen dangerous places before, but this was different. The space in front of them looked angry. Streams of hot gas twisted in impossible shapes. Lightning jumped between clouds of glowing particles. In the center, a dying star threw out bursts of energy that could cook a ship in seconds. "My God," whispered Danny Lee from the navigation station. "It's worse than the computer models showed." Danny was the best pilot Jake had ever worked with. He had flown through asteroid fields and solar storms without breaking a sweat. But now his hands shook slightly as he looked at the chaos ahead of them. "Can you plot us a course through that?" Jake asked. Danny studied his instruments. Numbers scrolled across his screens faster than a human could normally read. But Danny had been doing this job for 15 years. His brain worked like a computer when it came to flying. "Maybe," Danny said slowly. "But we'll have to change direction every few seconds. The gravity fields keep shifting. What looks safe now might be a death trap in 10 minutes. Maria Santos climbed up from the engine room. She was the chief engineer and knew every bolt and wire on the ship. Her clothes were already dirty with grease, and her tools hung from her belt. "Captain, I've been looking at the stress readings," Maria said. "If we go in there, we're going to push the hull way past its design limits. I can reinforce the important systems, but I can't promise anything." Jake nodded. "Do what you can. Maria, we're going in anyway." As the Titan moved deeper into the nebula, the ship began to shake. Space itself seemed to be vibrating around them. The lights on the bridge flickered as energy waves washed over their shields. "Contact!" Lisa Chen called out from communications. "I've found the Zalari ship." The main screen showed a vessel unlike anything humans built. It looked like a giant flower floating in space. Its hull curved in smooth, organic lines. Soft lights pulsed along its surface like a heartbeat. It was beautiful, but Jake could see it was dying. Cracks spread across the flower-like hull. Some of its petals had broken off completely. The lights that should have been bright blue were fading to a sickly yellow. Pieces of debris floated around, it like dead leaves. "That's their transport ship," Dr. Foster said as she studied the readings. "It's bioengineered, grown instead of built, but it's not designed for this kind of punishment." Ben Carter, the chief medical officer, was already preparing his sickbay. "Amanda, what can you tell me about Zalari physiology? If we get survivors, I need to know how to treat them." "They're very fragile," Dr. Foster replied. "Low bone density, thin skin, sensitive nervous systems. The radiation in here is probably killing them slowly." 3 smaller ships flew around the transport, trying to help. They looked like butterflies next to the flower ship. Their weapons fired thin beams of energy at the debris, trying to clear a path. But the beams were too weak. They could barely scratch the big chunks of rock that threatened their ship. Jake opened a communication channel. "Zalari vessels, this is Captain Morrison of the human rescue ship Titan. We're here to help." The response came in a musical voice. That sounded like singing. The translation software made it sound like a choir of angels. "Human ship, you must turn back. This place is death to all who enter. We thank you for your courage, but we cannot ask you to die for us." Kate Miller, the security chief, was studying the tactical display. She pointed to several red dots moving toward them. "Captain, we've got debris incoming. Big pieces moving fast." "Danny, evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered. The Titan twisted and turned like a fighter jet. Its massive bulk shouldn't have been able to move so quickly. But human ships were built tough and responsive. They had to be, coming from a world where quick reactions meant the difference between life and death. A chunk of metal the size of a building flew past them, missing by only a few hundred meters. The Zalari ship scattered like frightened fish. Their graceful movements looked like a dance, but Jake could see they were barely staying ahead of the destruction. "This is impossible," said the Zalari captain over the radio. "How does your ship move so quickly? You are many times larger than our escorts." Jake smiled grimly. "We build them tough where we come from." Another wave of radiation swept over them. The Titan's shields flared bright blue as they absorbed the energy. Warning lights flashed on every console, but the ship held together. The Zalari flower ship wasn't so lucky. Jake watched as more of its biohull peeled away like bark from a dying tree. The organic material simply couldn't handle the punishment. "Their ship is failing fast," Maria reported, from engineering. "I'm reading massive structural damage. They've got maybe an hour before complete hull breach." Dr. Foster was working with the Zalari medical team through the communication link. Their doctors sounded desperate. "Captain Morrison, our people are suffering from radiation poisoning. Our medical technology cannot help them. Many are already unconscious." "Ben, can we help them?" Jake asked. The chief medical officer was already working on the problem. "I'm reviewing their biology now. Maybe I can modify our medical nanites to work with their systems. It's never been tried before, but it might work." Danny continued to fly them deeper into the chaos. His hands moved over the controls like a musician playing a piano. Every few seconds he had to change course to avoid new dangers. Gravity waves tried to pull them off course. Radiation bursts tried to cook their electronics. Debris clouds tried to smash their hull. "How are you doing this?" the Zalari pilot asked in amazement. "Our computers cannot calculate safe paths through this chaos." "We don't rely just on computers," Danny replied. "Sometimes you have to feel your way through." That was the difference between humans and most alien species. Other races built perfect ships for perfect conditions. Humans built ships that could be fixed with spare parts and determination. They trained pilots who could fly by instinct when the computers failed. The Zalari escort ships were falling behind. Their elegant designs couldn't handle the rough flying needed to stay safe. One of them took a hit from a small asteroid and began spinning out of control. "I'm going after them," Danny announced. "Negative," Jake said firmly. "We can't risk the Titan for one small ship." "Then I'll take a shuttle." Jake was about to say no when he realized Danny was right. This was what humans did. They didn't leave people behind even when it was dangerous, even when it was crazy. "Do it," Jake ordered. "But be quick about it." Danny launched in one of the Titan's work shuttles. The small craft shot through the chaos like a bullet. It reached the damaged Zalari ship and locked onto it with magnetic clamps. Then Danny flew both ships back to safety, dodging debris that would have destroyed a less skilled pilot. The Zalari were beginning to understand something important about humans. These creatures from the dangerous world called Earth didn't just talk about helping people. They actually did it no matter how scared they were or how impossible it seemed. As the Titan continued deeper into the nebula, following the dying flower ship, Jake knew they were running out of time. The star at the center was getting more unstable. Soon it would collapse completely and everything in the nebula would be destroyed. But humans had never been good at giving up. They were about to attempt something that would make the rest of the galaxy think they were completely insane. The final escape became a race against the death of a star. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Titan, watching the readings that showed how close they were to complete destruction. The star behind them was collapsing into a neutron star, and when it finished, the explosion would be visible from halfway across the galaxy. "Hull stress at 120% of design limits," Maria Santos reported from the engine room. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. The ship was being pushed beyond anything it was built to handle. Maria and her team were working in conditions that would terrify most people. The engine room was filled with the sound of groaning metal and sparking electronics. They wore heavy work suits and carried emergency tools, ready to make repairs while the ship bucked and twisted around them. "Reinforcement beam number 7 is starting to crack," one of her engineers called out over the noise. "Get a fusion welder on it," Maria ordered. "And brace it with spare hull plating." The work had to be done in zero gravity while the ship shook like it was coming apart. It was exactly the kind of dangerous hands-on problem-solving that humans were famous for. Other species would have used robots or given up entirely. Humans just got their tools and fixed the problem themselves. The Zalari transport, being dragged. Behind them on polymer cables was also breaking apart. Large sections of its biohull were peeling away under the gravitational stress. But the core structure, reinforced with human materials, was holding together. Alex Turner was flying the most difficult mission any pilot had ever attempted. He was surfing gravity waves from a collapsing star while towing a 3-kilometer starship. The physics involved were so complex that the ship's computers couldn't calculate them fast enough. "I'm flying by feel now," Alex announced calmly. "The computers can't keep up with the changing conditions." He used the Titan's maneuvering thrusters like a surfer riding a wave. When a gravity pulse tried to pull them back toward the star, Alex fired the thrusters at just the right angle to use that force to push them forward instead. Danny Lee was constantly updating their escape route. The path through the collapsing star system changed every few seconds as gravity fields shifted and debris clouds moved. What looked safe one moment could be a death trap the next. "New course plotted," Danny called out. "But it's going to require some very aggressive flying." "Define aggressive," Jake asked. "We need to thread the needle between 2 gravity wells while avoiding a debris field moving at 60,000 kilometers per hour. In other words, impossible flying that would require perfect timing and incredible skill." Just another day for a human pilot. Behind them, the dying star reached the point of no return. The stellar core collapsed to the size of a city, but kept all the mass of a sun. The density was so extreme that space itself began to warp around it. "Gravity wave incoming," Lisa Chen announced from her sensor station. "This one's going to be big." The wave hit them like a tsunami made of twisted space-time. The Titan's hull screamed as forces tried to stretch it in different directions at once. The towing cables connecting them to the Zalari ship snapped tight, then went slack, then snapped tight again. For a terrifying moment, it looked like the cables would break. If that happened, the Zalari transport would be thrown back toward the collapsing star. 3,000 refugees would die in seconds, but the cables held. Human engineering had built them to handle the stress of moving asteroids. They were tough, enough to survive even this abuse. Dr. Carter was still working in his improvised field hospital. The Zalari refugees were getting better as the human medical nanites repaired their radiation damage, but many were still weak and frightened. "How much longer?" asked a young Zalari mother who was holding her child. Ben looked at the reading showing their distance from the danger zone. "Not much longer now. We're almost safe." He didn't mention that they were still flying through conditions that could kill them all in an instant. There was no point in frightening people who were already scared. Tom Clark was making his final shuttle run. His craft was barely holding together after taking multiple hits from debris. The cracked windshield was spiderwebbed with damage, and his engine was running on emergency power. "Tom, get back to the ship immediately," Jake ordered. "That's an order." "Just picked up the last group, Captain," Tom replied. "I'm coming home." His shuttle limped back to the Titan, trailing sparks from damaged systems. Tom had made 23 trips through hell to save alien refugees he had never met. It was exactly the kind of heroic stupidity that made humans legendary. The breakthrough came when Alex realized he could use the star's final collapse to help their escape. As the stellar core imploded, it created a massive gravity slingshot effect. Instead of fighting against it, Alex aimed the Titan directly at the collapsing star. "Alex, what are you doing?" Jake demanded. "Trust me, Captain. I'm going to use the star's gravity to throw us clear." It was the most dangerous flying maneuver ever attempted. Alex was deliberately flying toward a collapsing star, timing their approach so that the gravity would fling them away at exactly the right moment. The Zalari captain, listening over the communication link, couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Human pilot, you are flying toward certain death." "No," Alex replied with the calm confidence that marked human space pilots. "I'm flying toward certain salvation." The maneuver worked perfectly. The Titan and its towed cargo swung around the collapsing star like a stone in a slingshot. The tremendous gravity accelerated both ships far beyond what their engines could achieve alone. They shot out of the danger zone just as the star completed its collapse. Behind them, the stellar explosion lit up half the sector. The beautiful Veil Nebula became an expanding wall of superheated plasma, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. As they cleared the shock wave by mere seconds, the crew of the Titan finally allowed themselves to breathe. They had done something that every expert in the galaxy said was impossible. They had rescued 3,000 refugees from a collapsing star system. The Zalari captain's voice came over the radio, filled with wonder and disbelief. "Captain Morrison, in all our centuries of space travel, we have never seen such a rescue. Your people flew into certain death and brought us to safety. How is such a thing possible?" Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. Maria, covered in grease and exhaustion but grinning with satisfaction. Alex, still calmly flying even though they were now safe. Danny, already plotting their course to the nearest safe port. Tom, nursing a cup of coffee and planning repairs to his damaged shuttle. They looked tired, beaten up, and completely satisfied with their work. They had saved lives, solved impossible problems, and proved once again that humans could accomplish anything when lives were at stake. "Well, Captain," Jake replied with the kind of casual understatement that would become legendary throughout the galaxy, "We're from Earth. This was just another Tuesday for us." The rescue of the Zalari refugees sent shockwaves through the galactic community. Word spread quickly that the humans, the newcomers from the dangerous world called Earth, had accomplished a rescue mission that every other species had declared impossible. Other alien species began to whisper about the Deathworlders. These were beings so adapted to survival that they could work in conditions that would kill anyone else. They built ships that could take incredible punishment. They trained pilots who could fly by instinct when computers failed. They had doctors who could improvise cures for diseases they had never seen before. Most importantly, they had something that was rare in the galaxy: the willingness to risk everything to save strangers. Space stations and trading posts across known space began to share a new saying among their crews. When faced with impossible situations, when rescue seemed hopeless, when all hope was lost, they would remind each other, "Don't worry, the humans are coming." And somehow, that simple phrase became a source of comfort to billions of beings across the stars. Because everyone now knew that somewhere out there, flying ships built like fortresses and crewed by heroes who called dangerous rescues just another Tuesday, the humans were always ready to help. The Deathworlders had arrived to rescue aliens in peril, and the galaxy would never be the same. The evacuation began as the dying star entered its final death throes. Jake Morrison watched the stellar readings with growing concern. Gravity waves strong enough to crush normal matter were rippling outward from the collapsing star. Space itself was becoming unstable. "All shuttles launch immediately," Jake ordered. "Every available craft gets pressed into service." Tom Clark climbed into his shuttle and prepared for the most dangerous flying of his career. His small craft was designed for asteroid mining work back in the Sol system. It was tough, fast, and could carry heavy loads. Perfect for rescue work in impossible conditions. Tom made his first run to the Zalari transport, docking with one of their emergency airlocks. Zalari refugees crowded into his shuttle. They were tall and graceful, but weak from radiation exposure. Many could barely walk. Their large eyes showed fear and confusion as Tom's shuttle shook and bucked through the chaotic space. "Hold on," Tom told them through the translation system. "Human shuttles are built to take a beating." The Zalari passengers gripped their seats as Tom flew back to the Titan. His route took him through a field of debris that was constantly shifting. Chunks of metal and rock flew in all directions, pulled by the erratic gravity of the dying star. On his second trip, Tom's shuttle took a hit from a piece of debris. The impact cracked his front window and damaged one engine. Any normal pilot would have returned to base for repairs, but Tom kept flying. "Titan Control, this is Shuttle 7, Tom reported calmly. "I've got some damage, but I can still carry passengers." "Negative, Tom," came Jake's voice over the radio. "Return for repairs." "Sir, with respect, we don't have time for repairs. I can make it." Tom was right. The stellar collapse was accelerating. They had maybe 30 minutes left before the star went supernova. Every minute spent on repairs was a minute they couldn't use to save lives. Dr. Carter had set up a field hospital in the Titan's main cargo bay. Zalari refugees lay on human medical beds, their blue skin pale and sickly. The radiation poisoning was worse than anyone had expected. "I need more medical nanites," Ben called out to his assistants. "And get me those alien physiology charts that Amanda prepared." The human medical team worked with brutal efficiency. They had trained for combat medicine, treating wounded soldiers under fire. Saving alien refugees in a collapsing star system was just another day at the office. One young Zalari was particularly sick. Her breathing was shallow and her pulse was weak. Ben injected her with modified nanites and watched her vital signs carefully. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then her breathing steadied and color returned to her skin. "It's working," Ben announced. "The nanites are adapting to their biology better than we hoped." Meanwhile, Maria Santos and her engineering team were attempting something that violated several laws of physics. They were trying to attach towing cables to the Zalari transport ship. The alien vessel was enormous. Nearly 3 kilometers long and shaped like a giant flower. Its bio-hull was still partially alive, which made it impossible to use normal magnetic clamps. Maria had to find organic attachment points that could handle the stress of being dragged through space. "The biostructure is tougher than I expected," Maria reported as she worked on the ship's exterior. "It's like trying to put a harness on a whale, but I think I can make it work." Her team used a combination of human technology and improvised solutions. They drilled anchor points into the strongest parts of the alien hull, then attached polymer cables designed for moving asteroids. It was crude engineering, but it would have to work. Commander Bell was calculating the impossible math of their escape plan. The Titan was powerful, but it had never been designed to tow something as massive as the Zalari transport. The combined weight of both ships would cut their acceleration by more than half. "We can only achieve 60% of normal thrust," Ryan reported to Jake. "That gives us a very narrow escape window." Danny Lee was plotting their escape route through the collapsing star system. The gravity fields were becoming more chaotic. By the minute, what looked like a safe path now might be a death trap in 10 minutes. "I can get us out," Danny said, but his voice was tight with stress. "But we'll be cutting it very close." The most critical moment came when the Zalari transport's remaining bioengines finally died completely. The great ship went dark, its organic systems shutting down one by one. 3,000 Zalari were now trapped in a dead vessel with only emergency life support. "Their ship is completely disabled," Lisa reported from communications. "They're dead in space." That's when Jake made the decision that would define the rescue operation. "Maria, are those towing cables ready?" "As ready as they'll ever be, Captain." "Then we're dragging them out of here." The idea was so crazy that even the experienced rescue crew had doubts. The Titan's engines were designed to push mining equipment through space, not to tow a 3-kilometer starship through a stellar disaster. But humans had built their reputation on attempting impossible things. The towing operation began with the Titan slowly taking up the slack in the cables. The ship's hull groaned as the stress built up. Warning lights flashed on every engineering console as systems were pushed beyond their design limits. "Engines at maximum burn," Maria announced from the engine room. "Hull stress is approaching critical levels." The Zalari transport began to move. Slowly at first, then picking up speed as the Titan's powerful engines overcame the massive inertia. The two ships, connected by polymer cables, began their race against stellar death. Alex Turner was flying the most difficult mission of his career. He had to pilot both ships as if they were one vessel, compensating for the drag and instability of the dead transport. Every course correction sent stress waves through the towing cables. "The cables are holding," Maria reported, "but I don't know for how long." Behind them, the dying star was entering its final collapse phase. The stellar core was crushing itself under its own gravity, preparing for the explosion that would destroy everything around it. Tom Clark continued his shuttle runs, even with his damaged craft. He had made 17 trips between the ships, each one more dangerous than the last. His cracked windshield was getting worse and his remaining engine was running hot. "Tom, you need to stop," Jake ordered. "Your shuttle won't survive another trip." "Just a few more runs, Captain," Tom replied. "There are still people who need help." The Zalari refugees couldn't understand what they were seeing. These humans were risking their lives for aliens they had never met. The concept was foreign to most galactic species, who usually helped only their own kind. "Why do you do this?" asked the Zalari captain over the radio. "We are strangers to you. We have nothing to offer in return." Jake thought about the question as he watched his crew work, Danny flying through impossible conditions, Maria pushing the engines past their limits, Tom risking his life in a damaged shuttle, Ben saving alien lives with improvised medicine. "Because it's the right thing to do," Jake answered simply. The star's collapse accelerated. Gravity waves rippled through space, threatening to tear apart anything not solidly built. The Titan's hull groaned and flexed but held together. Human engineering was designed for abuse. The Zalari transport, even with its hybrid hull repairs, began to break apart under the gravitational stress. Sections of bio-hull peeled away like leaves in a windstorm, but the core structure held, protected by the polymer reinforcements that Maria's team had installed. "We're losing pieces of their ship," Alex reported, "but the main hull is intact." Danny checked their position against the stellar collapse timeline. "We need more speed, or we're not going to make it." That's when Alex Turner did something that should have been impossible. He used the Titan's maneuvering thrusters to surf the gravity waves from the collapsing star. Instead of fighting against the stellar forces, he used them to help accelerate their escape. It was flying that pushed the boundaries of physics, and it was exactly the kind of creative problem-solving that made humans dangerous in a crisis.